All right, welcome to this week's episode of I Can Cook Too. And now for this week, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna be cooking something I grew up with and something that's part of my heritage. I actually am, or I might say am, but part of my family heritage actually comes from the islands in Trinidad. And there's one meal that we always had that I'm sort of conflicted about because I liked it, but it's one thing I'm not really good with is spicy, and it always was. Most of the times you'd get it, it would be real spicy, and even to the point where it just made it unedible because of the fact that it was so damn spicy. And it's also one of those things that if done wrong or if you let it sit for a while, it dries out really bad. So basically what I'm making is roti. And this is my first time making a roti, so I didn't want to do the traditional chicken. I think they even make beef and fish roti. I'm not sure. I've only ever had chicken. So the main thing I'm doing now is I'm going to make a shrimp roti. All right. So the first thing that you got to do is you got to gather all your ingredients, and you'll see I have the split peas. Of course, that's one of the main things for the roti. Got some garlic. Gotta have some garlic cloves. I like to use it in everything, even stuff that you shouldn't use it in. Then now we have some seasonings for the split peas. So we got salt, we got cumin, and we also have turmeric powder. So now doing this roti, one thing I noticed that it's a lot of work. It actually took me about 6-7 hours to do to make. It was crazy. It was crazy work. Because then you're setting up camera and shit like that. And I don't have a big production, but it was enough that you know doing the roti and then trying to film at the same time. It was rough. It was rough for the first time, and I wasn't completely successful. There were some things that, and you'll see throughout the video. I may point it out. I may not. So the idea now is we're going to go ahead and put those to boil, and we want to make sure I go ahead and get it, to get it soft. Now the main thing is again, you want it's good. We're going to be making a bread out of this, so and you'll see later on it's something that we fold in to the roti dough. So we want to make sure that we get it soft and make sure that it's it's sort of it's going to be sort of able to be folded into the dough. Now, after we cook the peas, of course, we're gonna go ahead and then strain them. That's obviously you got to do that. That's gonna be one major step to get rid of the water. So, duh. And you strain them, and I left them to cool off. Now, this is where I should have, after letting them cool off, this is where I should have gone in and put it through a little blender so they make it smaller pieces. But you live, you learn. All right. So the next step now is to make the dough. So with the dough, you have your flour, water, salt, baking powder. I think there's one other thing I use. And again, this is not a complete recipe. This is just, this is not for educational purposes, I guess, where you're going to have an exact recipe. I just wanted to display me doing shit online. So that's why it's like this. But if you want, there's places you can go online and find the exact measurements. But now we're going to blend the flour, it's just basically blending all the dry ingredients. Again, like I said, it's going to be flour, salt, baking powder. I think even a little sugar. Now, here's where things come in a little bit. So one of the, when we were doing the peas, a lot of times, and what I've noticed in different videos I was watching, now my mom didn't mention this because I'm not sure why, but in those videos, I noticed that they put Scotch bonnet in the peas, and this is where you get some of that spice from that I couldn't handle. I'm a puss when it comes to spice, so you don't expect that. So now you see the flour coming, or the dry ingredients coming together. Of course we're going to mix it with some water as well. This is sort of the easiest dough that I've ever actually handled. But with all the dry ingredients coming together, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna roll it out. I'm gonna, and turn everything into little balls, and from there, put them to the side. I forgot to mention, with all the dry ingredients, the thing that we wanted to do was make sure we put some oil in it, and I didn't have seed oil. It was recommended to use seed oil, so I just used a little bit of extra virgin olive oil, and also, of course, we're gonna add the water. one of the most important steps in making this dough is going to be kneading. So before I can turn it into the actual dough balls that I'm going to make it to roti, um, kneading. That's going to be, a good step. I, I, I mean, it's kneading. There's no. I mean, I wish it was a little more cathartic, but this is something that I haven't done before. So, and usually when you're cooking, you go through sort of mental things, and like I said, it usually is a cathartic process for me. But in this case, it was more nerves. Because one, I'm filming it and I want it to look good for the internet, you know, and two, it's because I've never done this before, and I want it to taste good and be like I remember when I was a child. And it's just funny because also somebody from Trinidad, well, she's originally from New York, but she lived in Trinidad for a few years and had some experience and even made it, even made roti herself from scratch. So it was also trying to live up and show making it and then having it taste authentic, and not leaning on her expertise too much. Okay, so at this point, I have all of the roti dough balls already sectioned off, ready to go. Off camera, I basically when I initially made the balls, I made sure I put a little oil around it, it's to keep it from, I guess, the outside going too tough or whatever, and it's just sort of, I don't know, I guess preserving the dough balls or something. Now, going to stuff the dough balls with the peas. And, of course, like I mentioned, or as you see earlier, those peas are seasoned. It has some cumin and turmeric powder in it, as long as the garlic and stuff like that. And minus the Scotch bonnet. I'm sorry, I don't understand. Motherfuckers be eating like they dragons and shit with all this spicy shit. And especially in the islands, I don't know what it is. I mean, and it's one thing when you grow up with it, which I kind of did. I'm not even front. I kind of did, but I pushed out earlier, so early in life. So so the whole process now, like I mentioned, is we're gonna flatten that out a little bit, and then we're gonna stuff the middle with the peas, and then from there, from and of course you got to make sure you flour everything as you go. You got to make sure you flour because you don't want the dough to stick to your hands or anything like that, or stick to the surface. And so once you see now that I'm putting the peas in, then you wrap the dough around, the peas. And the thing is, like I mentioned earlier, if I would have put this in the blender and blitzed it to where it was, really fine, small pieces, this might have been a little bit of an easier process, because I started noticing as I'm rolling them, obviously you see stuff's falling out, and then there were some parts where it didn't look like it was closing, or you start seeing the piece come through, so I had to sort of restart over again. But some of that was off screen. But for the most part, and you'll see, I did get everything done right. So I was pretty psyched about that. And yeah, you see it happening. So it's crazy. Like I said, this shit took me 6-7 hours. So this is actually what you're seeing now is actually part one. I didn't want to make a whole hour-long video. It's not like people been watching the long-form videos anyway. They mostly watch the short. So I'm already exceeding my time or going longer than I wanted to. So, with some editing, I've had like 30 gigabytes of footage. So I had to do some serious editing to not make this like a 3-hour video.